on this episode of The Security Return.
It's not a matter if, it really is a matter of when. And those who don't have a plan will fall to it.
I think cyber resiliency because I assume breach and I assume bad's going to happen. So if you're a business leader, you have been overwhelmed over the last several years with information. Some of it's really valid and super important. Some of it's just noise. Some of it's just marketing. But what really moves the needle in this episode of the Security Return, Tyler Ramsbey and myself, Gerald Auger, are going to be going through that. This is season 1, episode 6. In this season, we have gone through how attackers get in, the human layer, penetration testing reports, and strengthening your defense, all to prep you for this episode right here. I hope you can join us. Tyler, are you ready to jump in?
I'm pumped. Let's do it.
All right, I love it. Tyler, let's just get in and debunk some myths. What doesn't change outcomes?
That's a good question. And this might be offensive to some. I would say one big thing is more tools does not equal better outcomes. There's a lot of companies that have big marketing budgets and they're really good at selling ads and selling products. But what you're going to realize is the more products you add to your environment, if you do not have a good underlying security posture and cyber hygiene, the tools aren't going to do anything besides cost you money. So that's a big thing that doesn't move the needle, but a lot of us have been sold by companies that it does move the needle.
Yeah, well, and as a recovering CISO, I can tell you, and don't make this mistake, business leaders, unless you're doing it deliberately for career. A lot of times you'll buy a tool, you're either pitched it or sold it, or you just buy it outright, and it actually is providing security for something that you already have in your environment. A lot of these tools nowadays come with all sorts of different options. In the cybersecurity industry alone, there's actually been a bit of a consolidation. If you look at some of the bigger players, they are purchasing identity and access management and EDR solutions and SIM solutions to put it under one umbrella. So you may actually already be paying for a tool and a capability, and then you spending money on another tool that doesn't actually give you any additional value, i.e., you're not going to get better outcomes. The only example I can say of doing this, and it's really a pound foolish penny wise type move, is buying it so you can buy yourself 6 months of reporting to the board that, oh, we're rolling out this tool while you're looking for another job. So I don't recommend that as a best practice, but it certainly is one. Now, another kind of myth that I think happens, and we mentioned it in episode 5, if you caught that one, is, what's the total number of vulnerabilities we have here? Well, we closed 10,000 vulnerabilities last month. We're doing great. That doesn't necessarily equate to real risk reduction. Tyler, why is that?
Not all those vulnerabilities are made equal, right? You can close a bunch of informationals, things that don't have a major impact in the environment, but highs and criticals are left open because they would take significantly more work to close. And I mean, even this goes closely with that. And it's going to seem like I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I would say even pen testing doesn't move the needle if you don't take action with the pen test. A lot of companies, from my experience, do a pen test because they want to have compliance. You get the pen test, you get the attestation letter from the pen test, but you don't do anything with the report. That's also not going to move the needle. And that goes kind of in line with just remediating a bunch of vulnerabilities that don't have a high impact because those ones are going to be more complex.
That's right. I don't understand why businesses will pay for a pen test and then just take the report and file it away. Like, this is real insights into the risk and exposure of your organization. It's incredibly valuable. And that's why penetration testing is a capability and a service, and why people pay for it in the first place, because it is so valuable. So, TLDR for people listening, just because your security program looks busy does not mean that it's
Mm.
being equally effective for how busy it is. Believe that. So let's shift gears and actually talk about some wins. Tyler, what are patterns that you see in organizations that you do pen testing at that are getting it right?
One big thing, and we talked about this in the previous episode as well, but it's the work culture, at least on the security team. Taking the time to actually listen to the concerns of your security or your IT or your sys admin team in your organization is going to pay off dividends in the long term. So building that kind of security aware culture, but also that listening culture rather than top down, this is what we have to do. Spend time listening. You'd be surprised at how much more you get done just by listening to those in the trenches in your organization.
So what do you see strong programs doing consistently differently from weaker programs?
One big thing, and we've hit on this, I think, multiple times in this season, and that is understanding what your attack surface really is. So we talked about shadow IT before, was just the concept of there's random things in your environment that you're not even aware of. You cannot secure what you don't know. So buying all the tools, scanning all the things without knowing what's in your environment is going to fail. So being able to listen to your team, but on top of that, having a system, a process in place to document when systems are being added online. But you can only do so much with a piece of paper. You should also be verifying that these are the only systems you have online with scans and things of that nature that aren't going to cost you a lot of money, but they're going to save you a lot of headache in the long term.
So for the CIO, CISO, business leader, IT director listening right now, if they take action and they do put in changes and think about, treating root causes versus symptoms and taking the pen test report and making it actionable, what do you see show up across industries when security actually improves? Like if they put in all this effort, what can they expect to receive in return?
So when it comes to a pen test report, you get a boring report. That's one of the best things I can give a client. I tell them in the debrief if they do that, like, hey guys, this report was incredibly boring, and that's a good thing. That is a huge win. But outside of just the pen test report side of thing, I think it's the customer trust side of it. A lot of the pen testing we do are for SaaS providers. They have customers underneath them, and they can say with confidence, we've done our due diligence. We have a good security posture here. Your data is protected. How many times have we seen a company get breached because somebody higher up in the supply chain had bad security? That organization has good security, but above them is bad security. So that's another thing, securing the customer trust. And although in the short term, it doesn't look like you're maximizing profits, I think history tells us that as you focus on having good security and good cyber hygiene, although it may be a little more expensive at the outset doing pen testing and working with your security team, it pays off dividends on the trust side of things and ultimately in your overall profit.
Tyler, let's talk about outcomes over outputs. How should business leaders measure success of their program?
Well, I guess the wrong way to measure success, which is the way most organizations do it. Back when I was a senior member of the blue team, this is how we did it. You just say, hey, here's the percentage of vulnerabilities remediated. Here's all the vulnerabilities remediated in the past month, and then having those conversations. That looks good. And I get why people do it. It's easy to quantify. You want it on paper. You can celebrate those wins, but it's very superficial and artificial. The best way to actually measure whether or not it's working is not those outputs, but like Jerry said, the actual outcome of the program. So, how about a reduced blast radius? And what I mean by that is if an employee is breached, are you able to reduce that? The time to detect the threat actor in your environment or what the threat actor is going to do. Another one, which is outcome based, not output based, is your employees themselves. When an employee receives a phishing email, let's say worst case scenario, they actually respond to it. They click the link, they download the attachment. Are your employees comfortable enough to be open right away? This is what happened. Or are they trying to hide it out of fear of retaliation? When they hide it out of fear of retaliation, that's when bad things happen. So that's the outcome. A good open security culture is going to pay off dividends. But the tough thing, especially for the board and the decision makers, you can't put that on a piece of paper. You can't say, Tim got fish and he reported it to us. No one's going to clap for you on that because there's not a chart and a bar graph that you can show. But the charts and the bar graphs can be very artificial when you measure success by them.
A lot of business leaders have what I would consider a 1990s, early 2000s concept of approaching cybersecurity from an architecture perspective. Tyler, why does a prevention only, securing the environment type thinking and type approach fail?
It fails because the environment is complex. It also fails because most threat actors get access to your environment not from the outside, but from the inside. I had another job where I managed IT for a college. I think I talked about this on one of the episodes. And talking to the CIO there, we were talking about cybersecurity, and he told me, well, we're fine. Like ransomware can't happen here because our network is segmented. I'm like, if your biggest defense is that your network is segmented, you're in for a bad day, right? You need to have defense in depth. You should have multiple defenses in place. A skilled threat actor is going to jump over them. A skilled threat actor is going to begin from within your environment. So just focusing on prevention, like often what that looks like is you focus on prevention, you get breached, and then your real focus is on trying to manage the breach after everything has fallen apart. You need to be proactive with this stuff. Do not wait for a threat actor to fall into your lap and then computers and servers are getting encrypted. You focus on prevention. I almost guarantee that's what's going to happen. If it did not happen in 2025, it will happen in 2026.
Yeah, I always say cybersecurity should be called cyber resiliency.
Mm,
It's cybersecurity is too baked into our meta in our society, so that's not going to change. But for me, when I'm building programs and thinking of protecting organizations, I think cyber resiliency because I assume breach and I assume bad's going to happen. And at the end of the day, I am being paid to basically keep the business making money, right? Like at the end of the day, that's the point, right? So how do I ensure resiliency? How do I ensure it gets back up quicker and faster? And prevention only thinking assumes like, oh no, we're just going to prevent anything bad from happening. And Tyler will demonstrate through pen testing that you're not going to stop it, right? You just
yes.
want to be able to manage it when it does happen. Like any CISO or GRC professional, at the end of the day, security outcomes are about reducing the impact, not eliminating risk. You will never, ever eliminate all risk. You will always have residual risk unless you shut everything down and throw it at the bottom of a lake. And then at that point, you're not going to be making money. So that's not an option, obviously. Now,
That's good.
yeah. So, Tyler, it's always kind of fun to reflect on things that, kind of challenged us or surprised us. Um, I just kind of have a fun little talk here. What's one thing that changed how you think about risk, for example?
That's a good question. There is a great philosopher. His name is Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson said this. He says, everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face, right? Then your plan falls apart. And I think one big thing that has changed for me on risk, especially going from the blue team to a pen tester and seeing honestly how vulnerable even large companies are and how vulnerable their environment is. It's not a matter if, it really is a matter of when. You will be punched in the face. And those who don't have a plan will fall to it. What Mike, the great philosopher, would say is you need that muscle memory, right? In boxing, you have muscle memory so that when you are dazed and almost knocked out, you can still fight back. You still have a good guard. Little bit silly of a comparison, but it's the same is true in cybersecurity. If you don't have that plan in place and you're not being proactive, you're going to get hit on the chin and you're going to go down for the count, and it's not going to be good for you or for your organization.
Yeah, and for me, just thinking of like maybe a pattern that I underestimated. It's kind of funny. It really flared up, and if you didn't see this at your organization, consider yourself absolutely lucky. There was a very specific attack called Click Fix that happened in 2025, and it continues to happen. It's evolving a bit, but effectively, what it does is it tricks a human into opening a little command window and running a command, and they trick you by making it look like a capture, right? Like if you've ever clicked on the crosswalks or the fire hydrants or moved the puzzle piece, it's one of those, but instead of a puzzle piece, it's saying, if you're a real human, you'll pop open a shell and paste in this PowerShell code. Again, if you're a business person or not a tech person, and what I said doesn't matter, or you don't understand, it's fine. But at the end of the day, it was a very compelling way for people who have been just trained to click through these things without thinking in order to get to the screen that they want to get to. Very, very clever. Now, from a pen testing perspective, of course, I don't want my humans falling for this particular click fix attack. But at the end of the day, if the threat actor gets on that endpoint and they can't do much after that, or they don't have the ability to pivot or move laterally because through pen testing, you've already hardened those attack paths and you have choke points that you have detections on. Well, then the problem isn't really that bad, which is why you need defense in depth. But yeah, that click fix really threw me for a loop, Tyler, on how unbelievably effective it is. So much to the point that I feel like we're on like the third or fourth iteration and maturity of the click fix attack from the different threat actors. They all kind of got on board with it.
It's spot on. And honestly, that's a big thing that I think a lot of clients miss out on the pen test is the human vector is often out of scope. So even as a pen tester, we're not able to test some of those things. But you are spot on. If we do an assume breach perspective, when it comes to cybersecurity awareness training, very important, but studies will show you it's not as effective as we want it to be. Humans are still humans. They're going to be tricked. They're going to run code, even if you have some policies in place. How can you stop it when it happens?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually been scientific studies done where like they'll pop up and it'll say like click here to install malware. You will get a virus on your computer if you click OK. And more than half of people click the OK button because they're just like,
Just do it.
get this pop up out of my face. I'm busy. Yeah, so at the end of the day, you got to be mindful of these things. I'm sure you listening right now have your own kind of things that you saw in the last 6 to 12 months that surprised you. Love to hear about them in the comments or, in a discussion if we have one afterwards. But Tyler, one thing I love doing with the Security Return, this podcast that we've been working on all season, is giving clear executable guidance for our listeners. I want them to not just get value from our conversation, but be able to do something with it. So if a leader is listening right now and they somehow had the ability to speak to us and they said, where do I start? Like, it's just almost overwhelming. What do I do? What would you tell them, Tyler?
I'd say point one, you cannot protect what you do not know you have. This is a theme in almost every single episode we have done because it's a major problem, especially for large organizations. So, number one, make sure you understand what's actually in your environment. You cannot protect what you do not realize exist. And a second one, if I could throw a second one out
Yeah, of
there,
course.
is make sure you always test your assumptions. You might have a lot of tools in your environment. You might have EDR. You might have these things in place to protect you, but you don't actually know it's going to work until you run it through its paces through a pen test or red team, whatever that looks like for your own organization security posture. Those would be two big things. You can't protect what you don't know you have. And number two, always test your assumptions with real world scenarios and real world pen testing with a real human trying to get into your environment.
Yeah, and for me, I'm a big GRC dork, right? So one thing, this is less actionable, like go turn this wrench or go push this button, but it's more of a psychology and a way to think about how you're going to approach implementing security. Remember, the IT infrastructure at your business is incredibly complicated. All the humans who have access to all your data and all your applications and all your systems, both on premise and in the cloud, they're humans and they have human mistakes and they come and they go and they change and everything. So security isn't a solution you purchase and put in a server rack. It's not a 6 month engagement that you pay a consultant to come in and they do, and now you have security. It is an ongoing process. It's a living entity and it's very dynamic. And by using services like pen testing, for example, you get a crystal visibility into what the current status is and where your real problems are. Then you fix them and continue to iterate. It is not a one stop shop. I know a lot of times you'll see cyber programs in a linear graph. That is just not accurate. It's linear, so it's easy to visually digest, but it is absolutely cyclical and iterative. And you have to approach it that way. And once you get your mind around that, well, then the sky's the limit because you can keep upgrading and continuing to harden your environment, both the attack surface internet facing as well as educating your end users in a dynamic way. So don't sleep on kind of the approach that you're thinking about your cybersecurity program.
Excellent. That's so good. That's spot on.
All right, it's my favorite part of the podcast. If you're a longtime listener of the Security Return, you know we always have a lightning round. I think I like it because I don't have to ask the questions. I just to get put Tyler on a hot seat. I get to start a timer, and then I get to hit a buzzer that I love if he doesn't make it in time. Although Tyler's pretty competitive, so he always seems to kind of cram it in there.
I can
Let's go
talk
ahead.
fast.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring it up. All right, we've got our questions ready. Tyler, are you ready for the lightning round?
As ready as I'm gonna be. Let's do it.
All right, Tyler, what's one thing companies focus on too much?
Let's make it two things. I'm going to modify the question. Two things companies focus on too much. Number one is the outputs. We talked about that before. 9 seconds does not permit me to go into that. Number two, I had a second one, but I can't think of it because the timer's going down. We'll just go with it. There was a second one.
All right.
Tools. Focusing on tools rather than cyber hygiene. I'm going to take the extra 10 seconds there. That's like I used the extra time from previous episodes to fill that in.
Okay,
There we
fair
go.
enough, fair enough. Next question, Tyler. What's one thing that companies focus on? Excuse me. Next question, Tyler. What's one thing that companies don't focus on enough?
So the opposite. One thing companies don't focus on enough, I would say, is the outcomes. We talked about this earlier, but they don't go into a bar graph. It's not easy to quantify on a piece of paper, but the outcomes are significantly more important than the output. So in 2026, focus on the outcomes of your security program, not just the outputs.
All right, next question coming in hot. Speaking of outcomes, Tyler, what is one decision that consistently improves outcomes?
These are so open-ended questions. I would say on the pen testing world, if you do a pen test with Kairos Sec or someone else, one decision is just doing the debrief. We talked about this a lot previously, but doing a debrief with the pen test vendor so you can have a face-to-face conversation with them. Outside of that, MFA, 2FA, having a code, all that good stuff also improves outcomes. I'm
All
running out of
right.
breath now. This is the pressure.
I love it. All right, next question. What's one habit that quietly increases risk?
Mm. We also have spoken about this, so it's kind of a good summary, but it's when the C-suite, the decision makers decide that they are an exception to the rule. They use a different computer. They don't have EDR. They get access to certain websites that the people don't get access to. It's common in orgs of all sizes. You are increasing your risk significantly. You think it's quiet, but it will be loud.
Oh, you got an extra minute there. All right. And then your final question, Tyler, last one of the season. What is a mindset shift that leaders need to make?
I'm going to emphasize something we already talked about before in the previous question because I think it's that important. Outcome versus output. Sit down with your team and talk about what our outcomes we're aiming for and not just the outputs we're aiming for. That's going to make a massive difference in your organization.
All right. With time to spare at the end of the season. Very nice. That is the lightning round. Good job, Tyler. Appreciate it. Good stuff, man. All right. So before we close out, Tyler, if people are wanting to continue the conversation or understand Kairos Sec penetration testing, what should they do?
They should reach out. We'd love to have a conversation with you, your security team. Generally, when you reach out to Kairos Sec, I send over a calendar, and then me and Jerry, hopefully, both of us would be amazing, but we jump into a call with you. You don't have to pay anything, and we just have a conversation about your security posture, about your environment, and we try to mutually discern if Kairos Sec would be a good fit for you. So, if nothing else, we'd love to meet you. We'd love to have that conversation and see if we could partner on some of these security things we've been talking about all season.
The conversation around security doesn't end here because attackers, technology, and organizations keep evolving. So, Kairos Sec, Tyler, and I, we're going to keep crushing. If you want more insights like this, follow us on LinkedIn, the Kairos Sec account, where we'll be breaking down what actually matters. On behalf of Tyler Ramsbey, I'm Gerald Auger. This is season 1 of the Security Return. Until next time, stay secure.